if you feel like you have a problem with procrastination with your art because you have high expectations, because you think that you need to create something perfect, your vision needs to come to fruition in a particular way, or maybe even garner like a particular response or reception from the audience, then this is for you. I think a lot, and thinking a lot is great when you're a creative, especially if you're in writing or you got to generate ideas. I've never had a problem with coming up with ideas. I've never had a problem with finding inspiration in the most random places, in the mundane, in the absurd, in the dark, in the abstract, anything. And that has never been my problem. What my problem has been is not necessarily execution with all of these things, but consistency and continuing to go. And I think it's because I've had high expectations. I've placed something on a high level, and something like my painting or drawing skills is not at the level that ideally I want it to be. This is something that I wrote. I think I'm afraid to create. That's something I need to continue to work on. I think too much. I'm too critical. I doubt. I have high expectations. I need it to be a work of genius, or it needs to all get done in one sitting. Otherwise, what's the point? I'm unrealistic. I worry for the judgment of others. I get embarrassed and ashamed of my work. I need it to be beautiful, objectively, or I need to feel as though it's obvious. How do I just create again and let myself be that curious child? So that's a struggle. As I work through my creative blocks, I have been doing a lot of shadow work, and I think this might be if you feel like you have a problem with procrastination with your art because you have high expectations, because you think that you need to create something perfect, your vision needs to come to fruition in a particular way, or maybe even garner like a particular response or reception from the audience, then this is for you. Because the way that you can tackle that is realizing that perfection doesn't exist, even though maybe you yourself have seen artwork that you thought that's perfection, that's close to perfection, doesn't mean that it actually exists, because it's a subjective experience. When you look at an artwork, it speaks to you in a certain way, and it might not be the way that the artist intended. Sometimes it is, but you also might attach something different to it that comes out of it because a little core piece of it speaks to your journey, and the artist's subconscious might have put it there because we have all the universal symbolism inside of us from the collective unconscious, and that can come out in art a lot, especially like painting and drawing and things like that. We have unconscious archetypes that come out and symbolism that comes out that we might not understand, or we might not intentionally consciously put it there, but someone else picks up on it and it speaks to them immediately. And I'm sure you've probably had that experience where you interpreted an artist's work a certain way, and then you hear them talk about it and you're like, this is a bit different than what I got. Maybe I'm inventing it, or maybe you're okay with having a different interpretation to the creator. And I think that's amazing if you do, because then you think for yourself and you understand what art is. And I say that because whatever you create, someone will probably look at that and go, wow, that speaks to a situation for me. That really colors a time in my life. That really helped unearth a memory. That really evoked a feeling in me that I haven't been able to describe, and maybe I can't even describe it looking at this painting, but I can access it, and I know if I ever want to access it, I can come back and look at this piece of art or read this piece of art. And I think that's really beautiful, and I think that's something to remember when you're being self-critical, is that you don't know what's going to come out of you. You are a channel, you are a conduit for spirit. Yes, you have your intention, you have your idea, you know what you want to translate, and yours doesn't need to be the most abstract, grand, genius thing. You don't need to be pretentious about it, but you have something. And even if you're just drawing a portrait and you're splashing different colors on it, or you're drawing lines and painting dots and spilling paint all over the page and cutting bits out and sticking other things on it, I think it's all valid. I think you should create because something wants to come out of you. The way that you talk, because something wants to come out of you. You might say a lot of filler words, just like your painting might have pieces in it that you just don't understand. What does that mean? That doesn't even look cohesive, whatever. Or when you write, it's still a little convoluted, but you have a draft for a reason, because you just vomit all of your ideas out onto it. And then over a process, you refine it. And you look back, if you keep that as documentation, you look back at your journey, and through that, you can also then analyze retroactively what your process is and where genius tends to strike, and what types of things inspire you, what types of things end up moving you, what ends up coming through. You can look at early signs for yourself. I think it's about respecting the process. Thinking that you need to come out the gate swinging with an idea is ridiculousness. It's not going to happen. And you're not going to also get to the level of skill that you want to that matches the ideas that you have in your head unless you practice every day and you refine your skill. But you have to respect the process and you have to enjoy it. Yeah, it's one of those situations where I'm forcing you to have fun. You do. You have to enjoy it. And you have to find a way to enjoy it. But you can't, if it's a struggle for you, you can't get to the fun yet unless you keep showing up and you live in the discomfort for a little bit. I know for me, when I've gone to paint or draw, I'll just draw a mess. Because I usually draw before I actually paint, like in a sketchbook. And if I like something enough, then I might try paint it. But again, I haven't painted in a long time. And so I'll do that. I'll draw. And I'll draw something that doesn't make any sense, or I'll just start drawing a random landscape, or I'll just start drawing a random object, or then all of a sudden I'm blurring things together and it looks like garbage to me. And I'm not saying that I'm secretly creating something genius that someone else will look at. It probably will look like shit to other people, but there's something beautiful about that. That particular piece might not ever be shown, but it's a milestone and it's a monument for my journey. It's a moment in time where I can look back and go, wow, I was there and now I'm here. And enjoying the process is like play. It's like being a kid. It's like being curious. Like I said, you're creating for the sake of creating, just to see what comes through you with no expectation. It might be the silliest thing that you laugh at. It might be something that confronts you and makes you feel uncomfortable, or you want to criticize. And I think it's important to do it anyway and to acknowledge those feelings when they come up. It's like a meditation. You're like, oh God, this makes me hate what I'm looking at. This makes me uncomfortable. This makes me sad. This makes me confused. Whatever it is, and you just sit with it because there's something there. Because you know what, when you contemplate it, you might realize, you might find something in it. Not just physically, like, oh, I liked this technique because it seemed to express my anger, or when I used this phrase, it was really speaking to this experience that I haven't been able to articulate in another way. And you can extract that from the main body and take that and run and do something with it. And then maybe you create something that you have more in it to extract from, to then take to the next place and build off of. And it's a whole process. And that's part of respecting the process, because magic is all around and magic can strike at any moment. You can get inspired from anything, and that's the refinement process as well. So it all ties in together. I know that it can be hard when you have expectations, especially if you've created things before in the past that you've been deeply proud of and have shared and have got good reception from, or whatever the case may be. You can put a lot of pressure on yourself, but the people that you admire, if you looked at all the stuff that they never published or that people never saw in the public, you probably see some things that made no sense, or that was so different to the stuff that you end up knowing them for. And there might be pieces in there that they're really proud of that they never shared, and pieces that they hate and they hope no one ever comes across. And whether that's writing or film or painting or music, we all have that. And it's just beautiful to keep, because again, you can revisit it and go, yeah, I sound terrible on that thing, but I like the subject, or I like this beat, or I liked the kind of storyline that I had here briefly in this convoluted mess, let's take that. Or this one character, I really am attached to them, let me build a story around them, or chuck them in something else. You know, you can find gems. So anything you make, even if it's shite, you can take something from it and do something with it. You just can. It's not all for nothing. You create because it means something. Even if it doesn't get used in the world, it doesn't get published, it's an expression of yourself. It's a time capsule. It's something to cherish. You know, it's part of your journey. It's part of your story. And one day you look back on it with fondness and be like, I love that version of myself. I love the version of my art, you know. And if you feel blocked later down the line and you look back at your earlier work, therein may lie the solution to all your problems. You might find something that you end up taking and going off of. So yeah, I think being blocked is not a bad thing. Sometimes it's a moment for reprieve, for rest. Sometimes it's because you're going through something and it's not the time to channel it into creativity. It's time for you to just bask in what you're going through or grieve whatever you're going through. And when the time strikes, trust me, any creative knows you get the calling and it comes through you and you have to go and make what you need to make, or explore until a bigger body of work comes out of you. And I think that's really beautiful because it's innately such a spiritual and intimate process that happens that you just can't explain to other people. And I think that's also something funny to explain, is the lifestyle or the temperament and the lifestyle of an artist to a person who is very, I don't know what the word is to explain the opposite kind of person, but so for me, one of my earliest loves in life was photography. And fortunately enough for me, one of my best friends growing up, she had a father who did photography. She had cameras early on in her life, and she kind of introduced me to a proper digital, like DSLR camera and what it could do. And I'd always taken photos with anything that I had, but this was another thing. And like watching him in action shooting, and he would shoot us when we were little in places he'd just like the lighting in the kitchen. He'd be like, sit here, look that way, and take a picture of you, and you'd be like, wow, like the way you play with light. And so I was just absorbing all these different things. And her and I would stage, we would go out and we would pick a location and we would just take so many photos, and then we'd go to another place and do it. And we always carried a camera on us, and we always had our phones. So if we ever came anywhere that looked pretty, or we liked the backdrop, or the color scheme was nice, or we looked good in the place, it was good lighting, we would stop and just snap a few pictures of anything. Candid shots, stage shots, anything. And we loved going in and editing them and making presets and uploading them and all these things. Like, it was just one of our favorite things to do, and I really, really loved it. I loved shooting other people, especially. God, this out of context sounds different, but anyway, you know what I mean. I love taking photos of other people, and I still do. And I carried that into adulthood. I always carried a little camera around with me. I eventually got my own DSLR, and I would take pictures of doing all sorts of things with my family. And then I bought like little film cameras, 35mm, and I would just use them anywhere and get the film developed and just be so excited to look at what I'd captured, because I would forget. And in doing this, it helped spark a lot of things for me to write. And now I'm revisiting photography because I haven't really been into it in the last couple of years because I had to sell my camera, unfortunately. But I still have my film camera. And I just recently realized that I had it and that I could buy film and just start shooting again. And now doing it, I already have little projects I want to do with photography. And because of that, it's kind of inspired ideas for paintings, which is something that I've not had in a long time. I haven't been inspired to paint certain things or to explore a certain feeling. And I think that indulging photography again, one of my earliest loves, has allowed me to look at painting in a way that I haven't in a long time. And I really appreciate that. So I think that's another hack, is like, just pick up another creative hobby. It doesn't need to be one that requires a lot of money. It can just be anything. It could be crocheting. It could be bedazzling your pillow. I don't know. It could be cooking. and baking, you know, and decorating stuff like cakes, piping and all that. It could be thrift flipping, you know, it could be jewelry making, it could be makeup, whatever it is, and just explore that, because, and it's something that you don't take super serious, you're doing it for fun, so you get that muscle going, and then you can apply it to the thing that you're trying to revive or advance and grow. So I think the point of this video was more so to just talk to you guys, or talk to more people about how to overcome this thing, because I'm still in the middle of trying to work through this block, because it got to the point where I would pick up my supplies and my paint, I would set everything up, and I would just be repulsed to even like do anything, and that's such a strong reaction. And I had to do some journaling on that, and I talked to my best friend, who also, by the way, has a channel. Go check her out. She has 2 channels. She has Tando's Parlor, where she talks about more advice and personal things, and then she has a spiritual channel where she does all sorts of, she talks about astrology, she does collective readings, pick of cards, and shares anything. She's a formidable spiritualist and an incredible psychic and a great astrologer, so I think it's worth checking her out. And anyway, I was talking to her about it, and she kind of checked me a little. She was like, you're being too much in your head, you're being perfectionist, it's not about, you don't need to think any more than you already have, it's not, stop intellectualizing the process, essentially, just do the thing. And when I went to do it, I went, I'm repulsed by it, why? And I had to dive into it deeper. And so I think, yeah, explore in many different ways, get hungry for it, you know, try a different hobby, journal about it, talk to someone that you trust, because they might just set you straight and tell you that you're just being ridiculous, or they might offer some other type of advice that comes out really well. But the point of this was so that I could just share these thoughts. Maybe you get some food for thought, or you get some advice, and at the very least, please tell me what you do to get out of this, or how do you struggle with this, or have you struggled with it, how did you overcome it? Because I'm still trying to understand, and I'm trying not to think about the process too much, but sometimes some people just say 1 or 2 lines and it's profound and it unlocks something in you, and you're like, oh my god, that's the answer, I get it now, that's what I'm doing, you know, or maybe I'm overthinking it or whatever. So if anyone has sage wisdom, or they just want to join the discussion, you have thoughts about this too and they're pretty strong, please, I'm begging you, share them, because I need to hear them. At the very least, it'll be a curious discussion. So I look forward to hearing from all of you. Please like, subscribe, come back, show the love, share it with people if you feel like they would benefit from this, or if you think that it would facilitate a good discussion with you and your peoples. You know, the more the merrier. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Bye.